Hello and welcome to I'm a Perfectionist, Get Me Out of Here, where we are all allowed to be perfectly imperfect. I'm Eileen Webb, a licensed psychologist, CBT and EMDR therapist, author, NLP practitioner, and as you can see, a podcaster as well. My guest this week is Matt Bird. Matt is an author of 20 books. And he's also helping others write and publish their books. Hello, Matt. Hello, and welcome to I'm a Perfectionist, Get Me Out of Here.
Hey, Aileen, it's great to be with you and all your listeners.
It's really nice to have you here. I understand that you have written over 20 books.
I have indeed. I've authored 20 books and I coach over 100 people a year to become globally published authors.
Amazing. That's absolutely amazing. I have written too, and that has been stressful enough to publish.
Well, you should come and publish you next time.
I shall definitely keep that in mind. I was thinking about that actually. So hopefully my new one will be published within the next few weeks. But there was a lot. So I have to congratulate you with 20 books published and hundreds of people that you have helped publish their books, write and publish.
Yes, indeed. Yes. Yeah.
Help.
Often people, they don't know where to start, or they've started and they get stuck. And so I work with people who find themselves, who don't know where to start or have got stuck. And we help them write the best book they have.
Oh, well, tell me about getting stuck. I mean, I wrote mine 2.5 years ago. So it has been sitting there just to be published, just to be looked at and published. I would like to just know more about you, so our audience can have a feeling of who Matt is.
Yeah.
So what brought you to where you are now?
Oh gosh. Well, I believe in living life as a big adventure. And so I'm always making an adventure out of life. I would describe myself as a business and social entrepreneur. I love starting new ventures, and I have to kind of control myself and hold myself back from starting new ones sometimes. So I have a portfolio of enterprises that I lead, a global foundation called Neighbor, ensuring that every neighbor is loved and feels loved. I run a coaching, publishing, marketing business called Publish You. I run a property business providing holiday destinations in Sicily, in Italy. But when I'm not working, I live in London, in Covent Garden, in the very heart and centre of London's West End. It's a wonderful place to be if you love great food, great wine, great fashion, live music, and I love all those things. So that's a little bit about me. I love life, love people, love adventure.
Fantastic, amazing. So how did you get into writing?
That's a very good question, Aileen. I remember I was sat with a friend called Mike, and we were just having a catch up. And he asked me what I was speaking about at a conference that was coming up. And I was giving kind of 5 keynote speeches. And he said to me, Matt, he said, tell me about them. So I told him about the speeches, and he said, Matt, he said, that's a book. I said, pardon? He said, that's a book. He reached for his telephone, dialed a number, said, David, he said, I've got a young man here. It was a few years ago. He said, I've got a young man here. He's got a book in him. Will you publish it? And he passed me the telephone. I nearly wet myself. Oh my goodness. In that instance, I had to come up with a title for the book, a target market for the book, and a short summary of what it was all about. But that's how I came to publish my first book.
I guess you already had that very good idea about your audience for that book. And
well, no, I didn't. I had to make it up on the spot. but they published it, so it obviously what I made up worked.
fantastic. And then it sounds like the adventure was so exciting that you had to keep on and on.
Yeah, well, many things in life are addictive, and some of the things that we're addicted to are not good for us, and some of the things are quite beneficial for us. And I must say that once you've written your first book, second book, third book, it actually becomes addictive
Mm.
because you realize how achievable it is. And then you think about the impact that it makes in terms of building your personal brand, generating income, increasing the reach of your audience. It's phenomenal. So you just keep on doing it.
Yeah, the satisfaction you get by it as well when people write to you and say, this was amazing and I love your book and I find it useful and so on. It also is just such fulfillment, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. And I'm passionate about so many things. I mean, I'm three of the books that I've published this year. One was called The Great Entrepreneur, all about a belief that all of us inherently have an entrepreneurial spirit within inside us. And we have this spirit of enterprise. And so that book's all about that and how you start a business. And that was published in English and in French. Then I published a book called Matt's Notto. As I mentioned, I have a little business interest in Sicily in Italy, and I have
Yes,
a
I
home
see.
there. And I chose to write a travel guide to that city because they didn't have one. So I've used all my own photography, and I write about the amazing beaches, the wineries, the restaurants, the UNESCO World Heritage Sites. I write about everything so that when people go to and stay in my holiday home, they've got a travel guide. In fact, I've got a copy here. I should show you, really, shouldn't I? Here we go. Here's Matt's Notto.
Wow. And that's hardcover as well.
Oh yes, all my own photographs. So that
Beautiful.
was a book I published, and then I'm just about to publish another book called Yes, I Can,
Ah,
because I meet so many people in life who hold back from doing what they'd really like to do, whether that's going out and meeting a partner or going out and starting a business or whatever it might be. And they have what I call self-limitations.
hmm.
And so this book is all about helping people overcome their self-limitations, including perfectionism.
Yes, and that brings us to perfectionism. How do you experience that in your life?
Well, I'm not a perfectionist, and I discourage people from perfectionism because perfectionism, it grinds people down. The
Mm,
pursuit of perfectionism, it just kind of, it makes people very self-critical. It makes people kind of very slow at adapting or responding to change. It can just hold people back in so many ways.
yeah.
So I have a number of mantras. When it comes to starting a business, I mean, I talked about the great entrepreneur earlier. When it comes to starting a business, you can write an enormous business plan, but and perfect your business plan. But if you spend too long doing that and too much energy and effort doing that, the opportunity that you first saw will have gone past your eyes and somebody else would have grabbed it. So the only reason you'd write a big business plan is if the bank wanted it. And frankly, the banks aren't very helpful when it comes to starting a business anyway. So why bother? Why not just write a one-page business plan, and get the essentials down and then get on it? So I have a philosophy when it comes to business and starting business, and I call it launch and learn, don't plan and perfect. Because if you try and plan and perfect, you'll miss the opportunity. And you may have an incredible business plan, but you'll have missed the opportunity that was before you. So I always say to people, launch and learn. If you've got an idea, get it in the air. Once it's in the air, you can put the seats in, you can get the catering, you can put the toilets, you can add the landing gear to land the plane later. Just get the thing in the air, check it flies. If it flies, then you can add the extras. So my philosophy for entrepreneurship is launch and learn. If you've got an idea, the only way to find out if it works is to launch it and learn as you fly.
Yeah, that actually brings me to imperfect action is better than perfect inaction.
Absolutely.
Only way to do it is to do it, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. And I've got another little philosophy, I often say to people, 80% is good enough. And I know that horrifies perfectionists,
Hmm.
but actually you can get 80% towards what you want to achieve in 20% of the time. So why would you want to spend another 80% of time getting the other 20% done? 80% is good enough. And that isn't to say you're settling for mediocre. 80% is very good.
Yeah.
Perfectionism requires 100%. And very, very few people, even perfectionists, in fact, especially perfectionists, never achieve the 100%. So
How do
just,
you know it's ever 100% anyway?
well, you don't. And
Yeah.
the thing is with perfectionists, they never believe that anything they do is 100% of what it can be. So just accept that you're not perfect.
Yeah.
Therefore, everything you do will never be absolutely perfect, but it can be good enough. In fact, it can be very good. So if you're 80% there, launch the business. If you're 80% there on the book, publish the book. If you're 80, just have a go. Then you'll find out if it works or not.
Exactly. So how do you experience that within people that you are coaching, both with as entrepreneurs and as writers? Are there a high percentage of them, and how does it get in the way both of your your targets
Yeah,
of
yeah,
getting them to publish, for example, their
yeah,
book or
yeah,
start their business,
yeah.
and how do you handle it?
Yeah, well, I meet people constantly who say to me, Matt, oh, I'm writing a book. And the question I always ask them is, how long have you been writing the book? And they'll say 7 years, 17 years, 3 years,
Wow.
2.5 years. And I'm thinking, would you like to write your book in 100 days? Because the program that I personally coach
Mm-hmm.
enables people to write the book inside them within 100 days. And I walk them step by step through an 8-step program that enables them to write a draft manuscript for their book in 100 days. And I always say to them, if you trust me, if you trust the process, but most importantly, trust yourself, you can finish the writing my book program with a draft manuscript for your book. So this means that you haven't got weeks and weeks and weeks to play with a word and try and get it right. You just need to write your book. And everybody would love a bestseller, wouldn't they? But you know what? The people I've spoken to that have written bestsellers, they don't think it's the best book they've ever written. And sometimes people think that is not the best book I've ever written. And I'm surprised it's a bestseller. So don't worry about perfecting it. Make it good enough and publish the thing. Only then will you know if you've got a bestseller or not. Perfecting every word and every sentence in minutiae will not guarantee you have a best-selling book.
Yeah, and you're perfecting it in your own perception.
In your own imperfection.
That you might come to a point after spending that extra 80% and say, okay, now this is enough, and then someone might still think that it's not good enough. So it's just accepting that we all have different perceptions of what's good, what's not so good as well.
I personally believe that I'm not perfect. Do you believe you're perfect, Aileen?
Well, my parents thought so.
But do you believe that you are perfect?
Yeah, is it possible? I mean, we are human. What is perfect?
So do you believe you are perfect?
That's a funny question. I am a big promoter of we are good enough as we are. So
Oh, as we are, but that's not the same question. Do I believe that I'm good? Very good. Yes, I do. But do I believe I'm perfect all the time and in every way? No. Do
It's
you
not
believe
possible. It's not possible. So
so?
nobody is perfect is actually a good
Do
one, isn't
you believe
it?
you're perfect?
Sorry?
Do you believe you're perfect?
No, I
Okay.
think that obviously not.
I'm just checking. So therefore, imperfection cannot create perfection. So I believe that it is not humanly possible to create perfection if you're imperfect. That's not to say you're bad or you're not amazing, but none of us are perfect. Therefore, we cannot create perfection. Imperfection cannot create perfection. So at some point, we need to accept that we're really good, but we're not perfect.
And that's the thing. I don't think that the perfectionists think that they are perfect either. They are just fearing often fear of failure, fear of being judged. And my new book, actually, you're talking about imperfection coming out, is called Perfectly Imperfect. Yeah. So obviously perfectionism doesn't exist, but when we are not feeling so um, good about ourselves, it's usually low self-esteem that comes out in order to trying to be perfect, not making mistakes and doing everything so that we don't get judged. And it's an endless cycle and downward
Yeah.
spiral, unfortunately. So we are, here we are promoting that your imperfection makes you perfect, that you are, as you are, with your all imperfections, unique and beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if we were all perfect, life would be very boring.
Yeah, but also, how do you define perfect?
A good question. Good question. I think there is perfection, but it's not human. I believe there is something outside of us that is perfect, but we ourselves are not perfect.
Hmm. I
And
mean,
so,
look at the nature. Everything works perfectly together. The cycle of life and how things are around in the nature. And nature certainly doesn't look perfect, does it? It's messy, but beautiful. So,
sick and people die. You
yeah,
know, I've had a friend die recently in their 80s. I've had another friend die recently in their 20s.
I'm sorry.
This
Yeah.
is this is not this is painful, but life is full of emotions and experiences, and perfectionism is not achievable. So
Yeah.
that's my view. So when it comes to writing books, I coach people to write their best book, not compared to anybody else,
Mm.
because comparison is a dangerous thing, isn't it? We think, oh, somebody else is a much better author than I am, or a much better singer, or a better accountant, or a better entrepreneur, or a better speaker, or a better coach. It's nonsense. That is not the comparison we should ever make. The only comparison we should make is to who we were yesterday. Are we better today than we were yesterday? And by that, I mean, are we learning and growing and changing and transforming each day of our lives?
Yeah. And contributing.
Yeah, and that's the only comparison that I believe we should make. So when it comes to writing your book, I'm not interested whether you can write a book as good as J.K. Rowling or John Grisham. I'm just interested, how can you write the best book that you have in you? And that's all that matters. That's all that matters.
So when you have people who get stuck when you're working with them because they're paying so much attention into details and they're doing that 80%, how do you handle their perfectionism?
Lots and lots and lots of encouragement and positivity and
Mm.
love and care, and also strength, and pushing them, and getting them to move on to the next sentence, the next paragraph, the next chapter.
Yeah, just moving on, just keep doing.
Yeah, moving
Yeah.
on. Yeah. I actually have a number of well, I have, when people come to write their book, I have one main rule, and it is a rule. It's not guidance, it's a rule. And I say to them, when you write your book from beginning to end, and the rule is you must not edit as you go. You write the entire book without going back to edit. And people find that hard. The problem is, if you go back to reread what you've just written, you'll be playing around with it, trying to perfect it all the time. And the chances are you'll never finish your book. So my advice to authors that I coach is write your entire book without editing, without trying to perfect it. And only when you've written it do you go back and start the editorial process. But writing and editing are two different, but obviously interrelated processes. And that is really difficult for perfectionists, to not go back, check spelling, check grammar, check meaning. You know, people who do write and edit at the same time hardly ever finish their books, or take far too long. People who write without perfecting and then go back to edit finish their books.
Yeah. Also, even when you finish your book, by the time you finish it and you put it to wait for a bit and then go back and reread it to edit it, you then know more. Maybe in between you have learned other things. And I just know from myself, I was like, I have to, well, I know more now. I must edit here. I must add this there. And you can actually end up adding because you're learning something new almost every day. And there's a point where you just have to say, right, okay, this is just it. It's done now, right?
Yeah.
Do you experience that with the people you're coaching?
Yeah. People do think, well, my thinking's still developing. Well, of course it's developing. I'd be very concerned if you reached conclusions on things and thought those conclusions were never going to evolve or develop or change for the rest of your life. I'd be really concerned about you. So I say to people, write your best book today.
Yeah.
If your thinking changes, write another book that shows the evolution of your thinking and change perspectives. You know, so, you know, one book is not final, as I've clearly demonstrated. I've written over 20. You know, write the best book within you today. And in a year's time or 2 years' time, write another book on the same subject or a different subject. My travel guide that I showed you earlier, I do an update to it once a year.
Oh.
I'm constantly learning about the beautiful city of Noto in Sicily. And so once a year, I'll add new photographs and add new content, because I'm learning about this beautiful city and the beaches and the wineries and the restaurants around it. But it's the same in any subject. We're always learning. We're always growing. I've written numerous books about relationships. I've written about business relationships. I've written numerous books about community development. These are areas of passion for me. And why have I written so many books? Because my thinking and my praxis are always evolving and developing. So you keep on writing, you keep on publishing, you keep on writing, you keep on publishing. That's how it works.
Yeah, and writing is also, it's a part of learning process as well, isn't it? You seal your learning.
I mean, it's like mega journaling. If you've ever journaled, you know, I mean, journaling is a great practice for self-reflection, helping you process these experiences, emotions, things that happen to you in life. But writing a book is like a big journal. You know, you're writing your thoughts on a particular subject. And as you write them, they become clearer in your mind. And it brings things together. I coached a lady recently from Australia, and she wrote about her childhood experiences of abuse and how she walked into a healing journey. And I interviewed her for a podcast, and she said, Matt, she said, writing and publishing my book completed my healing. Completed my healing. Writing and publishing a book on a subject is for the author, is a very therapeutic experience and helps us gain clarity about our thinking, but also process emotions and process our journey.
Yeah, writing and journaling, it brings out a lot of our subconscious to the surface as well, doesn't it? So it is really helpful for processing, also trauma as well. So that's amazing. What a story.
Therapist. Writing a book is like engaging a therapist. Except it doesn't cost you.
Yes, But talk about journaling. It's my first book, actually. It's got daily journals as well as daily, mantras, quotes that will help you go through some tough times. So I love journaling as well. Well, Matt, thank you so much. Is there anything you feel we haven't covered? Is there anything you would like to add?
Much, much more. But is there anything that I think maybe we should add? Simply to say that, just to finish off our conversation about perfectionism, when I was at school, I really struggled. I was in remedial English classes, remedial maths classes. They wouldn't let me do computer studies because they said my grasp of the English language wasn't good enough. I graduated from school believing I was stupid because that's what most of my teachers told me. They basically said, Matt, you're not perfect. In fact, they did worse. They did more than that. There's nothing wrong with believing you're not perfect. They made me feel stupid. And later in life, I discovered that actually I was dyslexic. And one of the reasons that I struggled at school was because I have not a learning disability or disorder or difficulty. I have a learning difference. I learn very fast. I process very fast, but I don't process as schools teach most people.
Yeah.
And so I've embraced my dyslexia not as an imperfection, but actually as part of my design, because I see my dyslexia actually as a superpower. It enables me to think fast. It enables me to make connections. It enables me to solve problems and come up with new ideas. So, so sometimes in life, people give you the impression that there's something wrong with you. But these apparent imperfections can turn out to be the things that make us perfectly us. And I wouldn't be who I am today or be doing what I'm doing today unless I'd learned to embrace my apparent imperfection and embrace it and leverage it and appreciate it and celebrate it, because it's part of who I am and makes me uniquely me. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking, but Matt, I've got this, maybe not dyslexia, but this or that or the other, embrace who you are in all your apparent imperfections and discover that it's those things that make you uniquely you, to do what uniquely you could do.
Yeah, it's beautiful, because there's almost 8 billion people on Earth, and there's only one you. That makes you really unique. There wasn't a Matt before you. There wasn't the same Matt now, and there is not another. There won't be another Matt in the future.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing your beautiful journey.
Thank you, Aidan. It's been great to be with you and the community of friends that listen to your podcast.
Thank you for joining us in I'm a Perfectionist, Get Me Out of Here podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please do leave stars and a review. Help me spread the word by sharing this with your friends and family. My practical manual, Transformation Through the Power of Quotes, will help you or someone you know get through tough times and feel happier. It is now available on Amazon paperback and Kindle. You can also check out our website, mindandmood.co.uk. Thank you again, and remember, imperfect action is better than perfect inaction. Bye for now.